Welcome into the Atlanta Sports Party, your home for the best Atlanta sports talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste, and right here with me is Jarvis Davis. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Game off. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. And the Atlanta Sports Party is, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's show, we'll talk about the hits that keep on coming for Alex Anthopoulos' off-season acquisition, and does a move from one agency to the next signal a much bigger one? We'll talk about that. But first, it's time to talk about the Rooks taking over Flowery Branch. And Jarvis, first of all, let's talk about one rookie in particular before we kind of look at the bigger picture of these rookies, because we got some interesting intel earlier this week. The Atlanta Falcons put in a waiver claim this week for former New England Patriots and Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback Nathan Rourke, who was awarded to the New York Giants per a source, given all the money that was paid to Kirk Cousins by the Falcons. And then the Falcons drafting Michael Penix Jr., 8th in this year's drafts. What are the Falcons trying to tell us with maybe this failed attempt to secure yet another quarterback?
I think Terry Fontenot is up to something, T. Because when you think about, these moves, right, we understand that, you got Michael Penix, MPX, I like to affectionately refer to him as. Hopefully, you know what I'm saying? Hopefully he lives up to that nickname. Right. A lot of times when I jump on bandwagons for certain guys, they do well. So, that's just me.
See Marcel Ozuna in the next segment.
Yes, absolutely. For sure. And so I think that, given the scenario, I feel like the Falcons kind of fell into this situation, right? As they got closer to the draft, they started to realize, hey, we might have an opportunity to go get this guy. So I feel like that's why they flew out there to go see him personally, to see if it's real, right? Because there's one thing to watch a player on film, but there's another thing to be able to see it live and in person. It's kind of why I'm really excited about, checking them out once they for the rookie minicamp. So I think that's going to be something to kind of keep an eye on. But as we got close to the draft, you saw the restructure of Taylor Heinicke's contract, right? You reduced that number. And more than likely, if he didn't agree to do it, they were going to cut him. So, of course, Taylor Heinicke obliged, right? Because they have to agree to those type of things. People think that, that's not necessarily the case, but that's what it is. And and just looking at Taylor Heinicke's contract, I'm thinking like, okay, if you were to cut him, it would be probably about 1.2 million-ish they will save, but you'll have $3 million in dead cap, which is not that much of an amount of money to kind of have to deal with. But so I feel like this is a move because you're not going to sit up here and tell me that Michael Penix is going to be your third string quarterback, and if Taylor Heinicke can't be your backup quarterback, then why is he on the roster? That's my whole thing. If you can't be the emergency quarterback or break in case of emergency quarterback, you don't need to be on the roster. I just don't see any value in that. And then that's why you go and get a young guy who can be an arm for you in camp and also be that emergency quarterback, to go to. You're not going to pay that type of money to a guy who's been in the league, who's been a starter in his league, who started for you last year, and it's a viable backup. If you need him to come in or if somebody goes down, but you already got that covered. You got Kirk Cousins and you got my MPX and Michael Penix Jr. in case something goes down. Because think about this, T. Think about this scenario. Kirk Cousins gets hurt, not putting anything on the man. And next thing you know, you hear Taylor Heinicke coming into the game. And could you imagine the type of foolishness that would bring as far as the backlash? So yeah, I feel like Terry Fontenot is kind of trying to figure out a way to kind of make this quarterback room look like a normal quarterback room, right? Because you have a guy, who's your starter. You paid the big guaranteed dollars, right? And then you have a young quarterback who is going to be your future. And then you have a guy that's a backup, but he's not the backup. and
Mm-hmm.
you gonna have him as your emergency quarterback. Yeah, I think
Right.
he's trying to work towards getting a guy in there that fits into that spot where they need them to be.
Yeah. And I think, too, in looking at the fact that, like you said, you've got an exciting player in Michael Penix Jr., who, if he is as advertised, is going to be a much more viable backup for you as we look, Jarvis, to an unprecedented 2023 season where almost half the teams in the NFL had to look to their second string quarterback. And many of those had to look even to their third. And we even know a team that had to look to the fourth stringer. So you do want a viable guy there, especially as we talked about on the Atlanta Football Party Monday. You get to a point and place in the season where, like you said, you don't want anything to happen to Kirk Cousins. But what if something does, even if he just goes down a game or two, but you're in the thick of running after that NFC South title? You want to know that the guy who goes under center is someone whom you can have confidence in, as well as the team that you have built around him and around Kirk Cousins for the future. So I like where you're thinking about it as far as like reading the tea leaves to what it means in the bigger picture. And hey, if you could get a little money back and you got to sign these rookies, hey, get everything, that you can. And June 1st is not that far away. So every little move also, I feel like, is getting us closer to what could happen for the Falcons on June 1st, whereby there may be a viable player that maybe they didn't pick up in the draft or haven't picked up so far in free agency. And these are the types of little moves that seemingly are just maybe nominal moves, but could actually pay big dividends in the end. And speaking of paying off big dividends, tomorrow, Friday, is when we get to see for the first time officially if these dividends will pay off with the gamble that the Falcons made in selecting MPX at that 8th position. And granted, again, earlier this week, we talked about it. You guys can check us out on our YouTube channel. We went through the gamut of the entire 2024 draft class for the Falcons. But let's just be real. You know where your eyes are going to be on MPX and what he's doing. So when you see him hit the field tomorrow, Jarvis, you and I, of course, will be out there and hopefully be able to give these guys some instant reaction. But what are you going to be looking for tomorrow?
I want to see the accuracy, T. That's that elite trait that I feel like, transfer from the college, that can transfer from the college level to the pro level.
Yeah.
And I just want to see it in person. I'm like Terry and Raheem. Like, hey, let's get on this private plane. Hey, Uncle Arthur, let us get the keys to that plane.
Oh, God, he's Uncle Arthur now.
Right?
You renaming him too?
Right. I'm naming everybody, God dog it. Uncle Arthur, I need the keys to the plane, sir, so we can go out there. I feel like sometimes I need a plane to go on fire, the flower branch sometimes coming from Augusta. You know what I'm saying?
He
I'm
meant
out here
South
too.
Carolina, but go on, people.
see, why you gotta take it a step further? That's how you do me. You treat me like this. You're like, come on, T.
Like
Don't
that.
do me like that. It's but seriously though, I feel like I'm looking forward to that because I think back to when we went out to rookie minis and we got a chance to talk to Desmond Ritter.
Yeah.
And now granted,
Yeah.
take away the football. I'm not talking about football, just talking about
Right.
from a leadership standpoint,
Right.
having a conversation with the guy.
Yeah. The
He
preparation to get
understands
to
it.
this point,
Right. He
all of
gets
it.
it. He totally understands it. And I think that, he was talking about, I also started thinking about, how sometimes when I go down a rabbit hole, I was like, I also started thinking about how he was talking about competing and proving that, he can be a starter. And then next thing you know, that whole conversation changes. Yeah, it went from I want to be a starter, I can be a starter. Hey, I'm here to support Marcus.
Before,
And
yeah. And we all kind of saw that pivot
yes.
from rookie mini camp to
Yeah.
when we got to training camp. It's like, oh, okay, now that
Oh,
you've had an
yeah.
opportunity, to see what this is really about for a month
Mm-hmm.
or 6 weeks. Yeah, it's something different. So I think that's a great call that you make. And also to add to that, I'll be looking for the accuracy too. But as we talked about again on the Atlanta Football Party, he mentioned in a recent article that one of the things that people low key don't see with him or don't give him credit for is his ability to run. And like he said, it's something he did more at Indiana, didn't have to do as much at UW, but as Tori McElhaney, AtlantaFalcons.com reporter, but also our contributor on the Football Party mentioned, hey, it's been some years since he's had to run. So I just kind of want to see what that mobility is looking like just a little bit to see if, like he said, it's kind of his secret weapon. We are going to find out and figure it out for Penix and the rest of this rookie class starting tomorrow when we come back We'll talk about something we never have to figure out because guess what? The hits keep coming for yet another of Alex Anthopoulos' offseason acquisitions. We'll pick up on it in the deep dive. This episode of the Atlanta Sports Party is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Of course, in the NBA, they're in the second round of the postseason. NHL is in the second round of the postseason. So this is the perfect time for you to jump in and make a bet. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Think about this. Mother's Day is just a few days away, and you might be searching for that last-minute gift for your wife, for your mother, your significant other. This might be a little extra cash that you can use for that. $150. You can bet it on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Just think Anthony Edwards doing the darn thing, Jaylen Brown doing the darn thing. So you can bet on guys who you saw grow up in high school basketball in Georgia and who are now doing big things over in the NBA in the postseason. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count because shots on goal, that's a prop that you can do for the NHL as well. Don't forget about them. Some really compelling matchups going on in hockey. FanDuel.com/lockedon is where you make it happen. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Jarvis. Crazy stat line once again. 6 innings, rendered the Red Sox scoreless, struck out 10 hitters, only walked 1. That's the stat line from Wednesday night's 5-0 shutout win of the Boston Red Sox by the Atlanta Braves. Chris Sale once again did not disappoint and was so very dominant. But coming into the season, did you see Sale performing this well this early? And what is maybe the one area that is the most impressive for you in the performances you've seen so far? You are on mute, sir, and I know they want to hear what you got to say.
First of all, I think one of the things that always stands out to me, because coming into seasons, because I've been trained by Alex Anthopoulos to really pay attention to the type of moves that he makes in off season, because I was just looking at it, and we talked about on the Atlanta baseball party about how, he was very strategic, right?
Yes.
By putting his stamp on Lando Arcia, giving him the contract, and then that made a guy that everybody really liked, as far as for the future goes, Vaughn Grissom, made him a little expendable, right? And then, hey, I have a need. Let me go out and get a veteran pitcher who's been there and done that. He was that guy for a very long time and maybe dealing with some stuff, and you might be able to get him for a nice price. And you start and you bring him in. So I started to look at Chris Sale a little bit earlier because these are the type of moves I've been trained to look for with Alex Anthopoulos by how he kind of operates and when he builds his roster out in the offseason. So I'm not going to sit up here and say that I expected this, but I am not surprised because that was just a beautiful thing to watch last night. Just Chris Sale just being on the mound, and I'm amazed at how his off-speed pitches are so effective. Right, we're talking about that slider. He's been throwing that bad boy. I think he's like 51% clip. And guys are just missing. They're looking so bad when they're swinging and missing on this cat. So to be able to see what he's been able to do for these last few starts, dude has been dominant. And people are talking about 2018, and we understand what he did when he closed out that World Series for the Boston Red Sox. I'm just like, man, if we get anywhere close to that, anywhere close to that, I'm not concerned about where the Braves are currently. I'm not, because if you get that from your third guy or your second guy behind Max Fried, oh my gosh, it's on. Let me say that.
And you're right about Alex Anthopoulos having an eye that he's then trained you to have, because we've seen it work out way more often than not in his favor. Whether that is a guy like Charlie Morton, as far as the guy on the mound and taking a chance on him, or saying, hey, I'm just going to go get Jock Peterson, and Jock Peterson then takes the Braves on an absolute ride. I mean, there are just so many examples where even if you don't understand it completely or you have some concerns, you always kind of know, but he can see something that most of us can't. So let me step back and kind of put on my AA glasses and see through his lenses. And you're right, there are some things that we're seeing from Chris Sale. The Braves are 22-12. Okay, let's do some quick math. That's 34 games, right? So we're, for all intents and purposes, a little, probably closer to like 25% of the season being completed.
Mm-hmm.
You got 5 wins, 25% into the season. Now, like you said, we don't know if there's going to be a drop off or not, but if there's not a drop off, you're talking about a 20-game winner in the 2-hole in your pitching rotation. He's not even your ace. And we're getting that from him. So I think that bodes well. And then also when you kind of look down into his numbers, we talked about the 10 strikeouts last night. We talked about the fact that only one batter got on base thanks to a walk. 103 pitches is still pretty darn efficient.
Yes.
When you think about getting through, 6 innings, and then you kind of look at his games, and other than the first game of the year, we really haven't had a bad conversation about Chris Sale. We really haven't talked about his a poor outing, if you will. And then the strikeout number, for example, even in that bad game, that first game, he did strike out 7. And then he struck out 7 again. Then it was 6. Then it was 9. Last night it was 10. So you're also talking about, like you said, his ability to get guys to think just long enough for that ball to whiff right by him, or to make guys think it's going to be one pitch and he's changing it up on you. And before you know it, you have swung at something that you never should have swung at. So yeah, I really, really am enjoying it. It's kind of like a treat because I don't think this is something that any of us could have expected or anticipated, but there is something. Oh, go ahead.
Let me add one real quick thing. You could tell he was enjoying it because obviously, going against his former team.
Against his old team, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of adds a little bit of the juice. We kind of talked about that yesterday as well. But like that moment when Jarred Kelenic caught that ball.
Oh yeah, the
you
jolt.
should have. Oh my God! The camera immediately cut to him, and he was kind of like had his face in his glove. You could tell he was just laughing. I was just like, "Oh my God, this dude is having a ball out here!" I love seeing that type of stuff.
Because here's the thing too: as a pitcher, you see that ball sailing back, and you know how much of an amazing outing you've had, and you're like,
may drop
my outing about to be right, exactly. And then all of a sudden,
may or may not.
Exactly, it may or may not. And all of a sudden, you get that amazing play from Jarred Kelenic, and it goes back to what we've said over and over again, which is the one thing that maybe people overlook and have overlooked for the Braves for a couple years now, although all-star nods and gold gloves do, count for something. But I'm talking about in the pantheon of things. They're known for their hitting power, and they're known for when the pitching rotation goes off, it goes slap off, and it's one of the best in baseball. What they still don't get credit for holistically is that darn defense. Yeah. It's the defense. So the fact that we're talking about 6 scoreless innings for Chris Sale is in large part due to what Jarred Kelenic did last night. So you got to give so much love to that. And Austin Riley, exactly. Austin Riley with him like really getting in the clutch with that double play. And then you talk about the run support that we knew had to kind of come back, right? Like that was the one thing where we said, okay, we're not super concerned, but we are a little concerned because we need to see that run support. And Marcell Ozuna had been that for the Braves for the better part of the first part of the season. What was it, like 15 straight games with a hit before his streak ended? And then things kind of went quiet. If you look at kind of the sample size of the last 5 games, obviously against the Dodgers, just that 1-for-4 outing, albeit a home run in that final game, but the 1-for-4 outing. But then he comes back and he only gets the 1 hit in the first game for against the Red Sox on Tuesday. But man, did he make up for it. 2 for 3 on Wednesday, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. I'm not here to play with you. And I will turn it over to Jarvis because I think Jarvis has the greatest way of saying it, which is Ozone is back.
Absolutely. And it's crazy when you think about the depth in this lineup, right? Because we're talking about Chris Sale and Jarred Kelenic and Marcell Ozuna. And we haven't mentioned Ronald Acuna Jr. We haven't mentioned Matt Olson.
Haven't mentioned Michael Harris II.
Right? So we're talking Ozzie Albies. Like we haven't even dove into the big boys, right? So we're talking about bottom of the lineup guys who are being super solid contributors on offense at the plate and in the field as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you talk about for a guy like Marcell Ozuna to be able to step in, especially early on in the month of
Yeah.
April, when they were struggling badly, and Marcell Ozuna was just being that guy, and we're having conversations with him about that guy who I said I was scared of on Atlanta Baseball Party in Shohei Ohtani. You're like,
Yeah.
yes, I am scared of that dude. That dude is real, and Marcell Ozuna surpassed that dude last night for
Yep,
the
for the
league leading
league
home
home
runs.
runs.
You know what I'm
And say it
saying?
again,
So
Jarvis. You didn't say what you said. League leading, right? That's what I heard, right?
yeah, league
Yeah, yeah.
leading.
League leading.
League leading.
Yeah.
So for him to be in those type of conversations and we're talking about those guys and highlighting those guys as the Braves, do a 2-game sweep of the Red Sox,
Yep.
like I'm not concerned about the other stuff. You're like, it's hard to be concerned about other stuff if you find ways to win ball games and your big boys are struggling.
Yeah, I would think the same. Anytime we can see one of our guys for the Braves having the type of season he has, even when he dips, it's not a long dip. You come back and you're now leading across the entirety of the majors with the long ball. It always gives some encouragement, especially like you said, because we're not even talking about half the order at this point. So very encouraging. Also, we talked earlier in the segment about moves that Alex Anthopoulos makes where we always go, okay, we trust AA. The Braves announced today that they traded infielder Luis Guillorme to the Angels for a player to be named later or cash considerations. Now, granted, he only played 9 games for the Braves. He batted 150 with 3 RBI. So obviously the Braves were okay with parting ways with that utility second baseman. And then they picked up a utility shortstop in Zach Short, whom they just announced they acquired from the Boston Red Sox in exchange for cash considerations. And as we always say, Jarvis, we know that those are the types of moves that right now, those are just tea leaves to what Alex Anthopoulos is probably ultimately looking to do as he continues to shape and reshape this lineup.
For sure, and then you also have David Fletcher as well, who's a
Yes,
utility
yes.
guy. You can kind of fill in. That's in AAA, so that's a possibility he may be brought up.
Yeah.
Given the moves that have been going on right now, we know Alex Anthopoulos is moving and shaking, and like you said, we'll probably figure out why he did that come June.
Right. Oh, yeah. There will definitely be an Atlanta sports party or an Atlanta baseball party in Clockett about 3 or 4 weeks where we revisit this conversation and we put all of the pieces of the puzzle together because, Alex Anthopoulos always makes it make sense. What sometimes doesn't make sense for us, I don't know. There might be some tea leaves from State Farm Arena that may give us some idea of what's going on in the future. And there's a guy that has the audacity to question what Jarvis might or might not be able to do if he switched sports. We'll talk about it on the other side in Around the Metro. This episode of the Atlanta Sports Party is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, gotta pause here to talk about Monopoly Go because it is just that game. And how do I know? Because yes, you can team up with friends for time tournaments. You work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. But I know that this game is so awesome. This app is so awesome because my friend and I were talking about it at brunch this past Sunday. So we're eating brunch. We're enjoying ourselves. Brunching is a thing here. And all of a sudden I look to my left and I see that she's fiddling around and what are you doing? She's on a Monopoly Go app. She and her family have 3 different groups of family members that play Monopoly Go. It's a thing. It's very, very serious. So there's so much to get. She talks about the unique stickers. We talked about playing pieces to travel the boards with. We talked about the emojis where you can taunt family and friends. That's kind of fun too. So it's new and it's exciting. If you ever played Monopoly growing up, then it's a twist on the classic Monopoly game. There are timed events that'll help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover, always something different in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench, get your friends, get your family members, your sorority sisters, your neighbors, or whomever. Go download it now for free and join the billions of people around the world who are doing the same. You can get it in Google Play or the App Store. Monopoly Go is game on. So, Jarvis, got a little notification in the last 24 to 48 hours about one Trey Young. He, of course, maybe like 2 years ago, Jarvis signed on with Clutch Sports, of course, with Rich Paul. And that is also the agency that LeBron James is with as well. So parted ways. Unmute yourself. What you got?
I said the one that he owns. Yeah. Clutch Sports.
I was trying to be modest about it, like, but yeah, it literally, it's like, what doesn't LeBron own, right?
Right.
So that particular agency is the agency that Trey decided to go with. And ever since that happened, Jarvis, remember, we've been hearing rumors now on and off. Ooh, that's probably the tea leaves that tell us that Trey Young's going to the Los Angeles Lakers. Well, fast forward to 2024, and now he announces that he is with CAA. That's his new agency. And I'm just wondering, Jarvis, if that move signals to you that maybe a move, not necessarily the Lakers, but just a move away from the Hawks, maybe it is imminent.
I don't know if it's imminent. Excuse me. I'm up here talking about Emmitt Smith.
That's exactly where my mind went.
Right. I call Carl Anthony Towns, Cat Williams. I'm just all bad this week.
Fix it, Jesus.
I'm being an old man this week. It's okay. I'll get back on track. Y'all be patient with me. But
I think, pray for it.
Right, of course. Yes, I'm gonna need all that. I think for as far as Trey goes, though.
Yeah.
For some strange reason, this may just be me, and ultimately, Landry Fields is going to do whatever the hell he wants to do, right? As far as what he feels like this roster needs to go. I feel like Trey wants to stay. And I think like him moving to this agency, it's interesting because I started to figure out like who the agent was. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times connections,
definitely.
and all that stuff. That stuff matters in today's game, right?
Yeah.
So his agent is Aaron Mintz. And then I started going down this client list. I'm like, okay, got a little, is that Julius Randle? That don't make it, they don't pop at all. And then this thing, scroll on down, I saw Paul George. Interesting. And then I started looking at Paul George's contract. He said this man has a player option this year. He has to decide by June 29th as to whether or not he wants to play out that $48 million, which is a lot of money. Hey man, look, but hey, from an optimistic point of view, which is where I want to kind of stay when it comes to Trey Young, because I really want him. I would love for him to stick around and work this thing out. But in the city, I feel like that would be. This is a calculated move. He's saying, you know what? Let me make one last ditch effort to a player that might actually fit with me. He was cool with the whole DeJounte Murray initially. I feel like he knows, and DeJounte knows that them playing together isn't going to work out. And I feel like this might be a ploy to say, hey, Paul, you made a lot of money in the league, bro.
Yeah.
How'd you come on down to Atlanta so we can get this Eastern Conference right? Because we know Boston ain't about to win nothing. Like they're not about to change anything. They might, Eastern Conference favorite, whatever. Let's come on back to the East, man, so we can work this thing out. Remember 2021? That was me. You know what I'm saying? All I need is a guy like you, and then they can get DeAndre Hunter up out of here. We can figure this thing out. T. We can work it out. So I feel like this might be a little ploy for Trey to say one last ditch effort. If y'all can't figure it out, I'm gonna help y'all. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like let's get PG up in this mud.
Yeah, and I think that it really depends because, like you said, Paul George has a player option. Yes. But Paul George has also enjoyed playing with the Clippers, and Paul George has enjoyed playing with Kawhi Leonard. Now, unfortunately for them, in their big three, it was
just
more
hard
like
for him to finish the season playing with him.
Yeah, right. and right. And let's face it, it's really not even the big three. It's like the big 2.3 because when you have Kawhi on the court, he's always going to be 100% Kawhi. When you have James Harden on the court, you're not guaranteed to have 100% James Harden. So I think the question for Paul George will be, what will the Clippers surround me with so that we can compete with the Denver Nuggets, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Oklahoma City Thunder, as those teams continue to separate themselves from the rest of the Western Conference. If there's something compelling that the Clippers say, I think Paul George stays there. If there's if if it's not compelling enough and he's intrigued enough and feels like the Hawks are going to actually try to build around Trey Young and he's going to be a part of that build, and yeah, I think it's possible. I think the question just becomes, and I saw this graphic, and Jarvis, I apologize to our audience that I don't have the specifics on it. You might remember it just came out yesterday that talked about Arthur Blank, and I think Arthur Blank might be like the 10th wealthiest owner in the NFL.
Yeah.
Whereas Tony Ressler is the 7th wealthiest owner in the NBA. But we don't have conversations about Arthur Smith not wanting to spend. We constantly have conversations about the Hawks not wanting to go over the luxury tax. And so I think that becomes where that question is. And if I may just wrap up with this, the question also becomes, has Trey Young in and of himself established himself and this Atlanta Hawks team or franchise as a destination? One thing that we can say for sure about the Falcons, I think we can say, Jarvis, they have established themselves as a viable destination in the Atlanta. Yes. Jesse Bates III came here. Calais Campbell came here. Like, they wanted to be here, and Calais Campbell is hoping he can come back and run it back one more year. He could easily be a hand for hire elsewhere. He's deciding to come here. I think those may be even the bigger questions as a player of Paul George's caliber or someone similar decides to come here. And like you said, whether or not maybe that move to CAA was in part to position himself to maybe make one more go at it here. But speaking of making a go at it or not making a go at it, apparently Austin Rivers thinks that you, Jarvis, could not make a go at what he could make a go at. Quote, I can take 30 players right now in the NBA and throw them in the NFL. You cannot take 30 NFL players and put them in the NBA. Jarvis, thoughts?
Oh, Lord.
Where do you begin?
Right. Like, without, I'm going to try not to be biased in my response. Right. And then, but you know what? Bump that. Like, come on, dude. Like, there are quite a few guys that I can run off that probably were capable, or they had a pretty good chance of at least getting a look in the NBA. And I'll start with how about this? Antonio Gates.
Antonio Gates.
How about this? Tony Gonzalez. One of my favorite players of all time, Julius Peppers, who played at North Carolina. People, like that. Think about that now.
Yes.
That is a blue blood.
Yep.
Let that marinate for a second.
For the team.
And played, and not off the bench. This dude played. This dude was a player. Like, he was a player for them. So I think that when you think about the athletic ability that you have to have in order to play tight end and defensive end, like, you got to be a little bit versatile, because we understood what Julius was able to bring to the table by standing up and playing outside linebacker when he went to Chicago. So it's just the athletic ability just is off the charts. So I get that. Now, on the other side of that, now granted, am I saying athletically NBA players wouldn't be able to come in and play in the NFL? No, not by no means. I respect what they bring to the table. You talking about 7 foot, 260-pound guys run up and down the court for for 48 minutes. That is a task. Trust me. I am old with bad knees, and I understand what it is to be able to try to do those things. But I think overall, though, he has to respect the contact portion. When you bring that into the fold, there are a lot of guys going to say, you know what? I'm about to go back to these guaranteed dollars, and and I think I can't remember who it was, but this guy was talking about how, basically NBA players, they run the league. It is a player run league. Like, coaches don't kind of sit back and all that stuff. I think it was Chris Long. Chris Long. It was Chris Long. He was talking about how the coaches can tear into your behind, and ain't nothing you can do about it. You better be able to respond accordingly, right? Or you're going to be up out of there. So I think it's just the dynamics are different. And I think that for Austin Rivers to kind of just flippantly say, I got 30 guys that can throw them in there and go in there and play and be effective. No, man, that junk ain't happening, man. Have some respect, dog. Like, sit your butt down some doggone where. That's my response to doggone Austin Rivers. Sit your butt down somewhere, god dog it.
Yeah. And I think it would be similar to, like, if a Deion Sanders said that and made the analogy football versus baseball. Well, you actually started in both leagues. So there would definitely be some deference that people would give to your thought process. But I think
No
that's the
doubt.
other piece. Like you said, no offense to Austin Rivers, but having not been a perennial starter in the NBA or not have played.
You barely threw yourself in the league,
Yeah,
and you had
yeah,
help. Daddy helped you.
yes, and that's right. And unfortunately, that's where the world went with that whole comment. It
Come
was
on,
like,
bro.
wait, you're not a starter in the NBA, and you weren't a starter on like a college football team. So where is this comparison contrast coming from? Or do we do what we do in 2024 and we just say stuff and we just see
Yeah.
if it's gonna stick?
Can I say this before we go? Look, I'm gonna be raising my hand like I'm 5 years old.
Yes, you may,
Like,
Jarvis.
T, I feel it's time that we need to call our local political officials, because it is time that people start getting background checks when you're trying to go to purchase a microphone. It is time. It's time. It's time. Like, because think about when you go buy a gun, you got to
Right.
figure out if this person is fit, to be able to do this. Like, make sure he doesn't have any type of mental issues or anything like that. Because in 2024, microphones, I don't want to raise the price because, hey, I want to stick around. I want to be able to talk on the microphone for as long as I possibly can until I leave this earth. I don't want the price to go up, but I wouldn't mind doing a background check, before I have to purchase another one. So,
Right.
yeah, I think it's time, T. It's
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. We need some regulating.
Yeah, it's time for
Yeah.
some regulation going on,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it is too many people with microphones nowadays.
Exactly. In the words of that immense poet laureate, Warren G., regulators, mount up and take these microphones. We appreciate you stopping by the Atlanta Sports Party. The Locked On Sports Atlanta YouTube channel is now streaming live 24/7. It's all things of Atlanta sports 24/7. And remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also free and available wherever you download your podcasts. And of course, we'll see you on the Atlanta Football Party Monday. And we might just see you for a hot second tomorrow from Falcons training camp.